Thanks very much, Naz. Now let's have an in-depth look at the newspapers. Broadcaster Emma Wolfe and journalist James Bloodworth are with us. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Who wants to go first? Emma, have you got something for us on the front page of the Express?
Yeah, so this is the ongoing embattled Rwanda plan.
Despite the, here we are again.
Despite being defeated in the Supreme Court and despite sort of facing a big showdown in the House of Lords, the government is planning to press ahead with their flights to actually take off to Rwanda. They've got 5,664 individuals who are currently, and this is how they put it, currently in scope for potential inclusion for relocation to Rwanda.
Now, last I heard, there were only 500 places available in Rwanda itself. That's the first year, is it? OK, so we're looking at, what, 10 years to clear this then?
Yeah. And
10 years to clear the existing backlog?
We're 8 to 9 months out from a general election. And last week, the Lords voted to compel the government to prove that Rwanda's a safe place. So this is pushing it on, kicking it down the line again. And the only winner from this seems to be the government of Rwanda, which has received 400 million and yet has not taken a single person from the UK.
Well, there was rumours of a Rwandan refund if it doesn't all come into fruition.
Yeah, exactly.
But Emma, let's just play it out. Let's say they managed to pass the bill, and then at full capacity in the first year, 500 migrants get sent there, illegal migrants. Would that be, so that's the best case scenario, would that be sufficient enough a deterrent to stop the small boats?
It doesn't seem so, because you have people crossing in, horrendous conditions anyway. We know that we have a system whereby people simply arrive and go missing and simply, not flagged up. So, since the laws came into force in July, which said that illegal asylum seekers were not allowed, we've had 33,000 already arriving. So it doesn't look like even the threat of Rwanda, and obviously it hasn't been up and running.
But the threat is fairly hollow right now, isn't it?
Of course it is. And look, they're not idiots. These people traffickers who are coming over and bringing people over, trafficking people, they're not idiots. They can see that the plan so far isn't working, that flights are very unlikely to take off. I mean, they have the same information that we have, which is the government are in trouble over this, and how is it going to work? But yeah, I mean, this is 3,000 of these people who are in scope for deportation are currently in taxpayer-funded hotels and asylum accommodation. So, it is a big cost.
It's good that we've got the figure on it for the first time, and that's the reason for the Daily Express splash. So drawing attention to the fact that there are these people who've been identified, what then happens to them, whether those flights ever take off.
And as you say, there's no way we can deport 5,600, even if the flights were taken off in the first year.
Should we move on to the front page of the Mail? James, the views of the Justice Minister, Mike Freer, saying, I've been driven out of politics by death threats for supporting Israel. What's he told the Prime Minister?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really depressing story, I think.
Sad, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so you've got Mike Freer, he's received death threats. There's been a couple of politicians who've been murdered in the last decade. He's also blamed the Mail's going with for supporting Israel. If you actually read the story, he's actually blaming social media for a lot of this, saying social media has made politics. Twitter and Facebook and apps like this have an awful lot to answer for. By kind of dialing up the rhetoric.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, social media has definitely normalised violent language towards politicians and elected representatives, and after a while, that's got to have some kind of effect, hasn't it?
Yeah, it seems to be social media's. The view is that it kind of making politicians seem like they're fair game to just abuse, and sometimes that is escalating into threats and then actually attacks.
As we know, all it takes is one lone nutter, isn't it?
He had been advised by police that when he was going out to events in his constituency to wear a stab vest.
Exactly, and that is not a way for an MP to operate. I think what social media does, it sort of normalises this. Well, I mean, it's anonymous, and most of the hate and the sort of trolling and the really aggressive and violent threats that one gets are anonymous, because people can hide. And
they are just keyboard warriors. But then it goes back to some people who then might be motivated to do something.
Yeah, and we have to remember, I mean, online and the internet obviously kind of, intensify that, but we have to remember that a lot of those people are never going to even leave their own homes or leave their own bedrooms, let alone actually go out and do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but the problem is, I don't know how good a politician Mike Freer actually is, but if people are dissuaded from seeking elected office because they worry for their family's safety, then it makes a difficult job even harder to find decent candidates for.
Yeah, and it should be the voters who decide whether he's a good politician or not. It shouldn't be him feeling the need to step away because he doesn't feel safe or his partner doesn't feel safe. I just think it's just a real indictment of the way kind of politics and the rhetoric around politicians has gone, that people have to feel they have to step away from public life because they don't feel their life they feel their life is in danger. I mean, what an indictment of what the culture's become.
I hope it has an effect. Emma, you've got a front-page story on the Eye about XL bullies, which is going to be the subject du jour for Talk Today.
Absolutely. So obviously the ban comes into force. Well, the ban, let's say, ban with inverted commas around it, comes into force today. But guess what? Already 40,000 XL bully dogs have been granted exemptions. The way you can get an exemption, you can pay your £92 fee. You then have to buy liability insurance. Great. I can't see how that helps someone who's attacked. But anyway, the dogs have to be neutered.
I think there should be a test for the dogs.
The dogs have to be neutered.
Prove this dog is safe.
They have to be microchipped, and as well as already having to wear a muzzle and a lead.
Is this not a sensible compromise?
40,000 of them have already been granted exemptions. There's a population of between 50,000 to maybe 100,000. It's hard to actually establish how many of these dogs are up in the north of England.
Is we now know where all of those are.
We don't.
And we know those 40,000 who've had the certificates.
And those are responsible owners. Those will be at the more responsible end of the ownership, and that's what we want. We want responsible owners, absolutely.
And they're muzzled.
And they're muzzled, and they're neutered, and they're microchipped, and all of that. So, yes, that's better than dogs just being out roaming around the streets. I think that we've still got an issue with the fact that there may be up to 100,000 of dogs that are simply not on the register, not, in any way being monitored or being kept safe.
But if they're then reported or police ask for a licence, the owners then face criminal proceedings.
Well, will the police enforce this? That's the problem. And sometimes, just the other day I saw an owner holding a dog a big guy holding a dog with all his force on a big lead. Yes, the dog was wearing a muzzle. But I just thought the different,
that can still be terrifying for a young child.
It's very terrifying for a young child who's at the pram level, which is a dog level, and I have a 3-year-old. But also, all that's holding really that dog back is that strong lead. If that dog escapes, I know it depends what you feel about those kind of dogs being on our streets.
Well, it is a talking point this morning. We're asking this morning, do you feel safer now that the ban on XL bully dogs has come into force? You can contact us, talktoday@talk.tv. Mabel has got in touch to say, I do feel safer for my young children and my dogs when I'm in my local park. And William has said, you never hear of multiple golden retriever attacks in a week. It's usually one special breed that's the issue.
This is obviously a real problem for animal rescue centres as well, and also a problem. We're going to be speaking to someone who thought they could sort of circumvent the ban by driving these dogs to Scotland, but Scotland have put the legislation in place, so by the end of this month, they'll be banned there too. So kind of lots to tease out across the programme, so do stay with us for that. Final thing, should we just mention, Emma, civil servants, it'd be good to know from both of you what you make of this. It's front page of the Times. Have been told rolling their eyes could be evidence of sexual or racial discrimination. This is all about microaggressions,
yeah,
isn't it?
And this is training that it's actually cost over £160,000 worth of training for civil servants in teaching them how to avoid microaggressions, such as rolling your eyes, looking at your mobile phone, raising your eyebrows, the kind of things
doing
that I
deep
would call...
sighs, Nick.
Sorry,
When
you put it in the
microaggression.
context of what we've just been hearing about the abuse that MPs get, fears for their safety, the idea you can sit in a meeting and do a big sigh and then have that count against you.
And you know what? I think these are things called human facial gestures, expressions of how we feel. They can be off-putting. Of course they can. It can be
also,
belittling.
to be fair,
if someone's sitting there rolling their eyes. Yes, but the feedback from these civil servants was complete waste of money, didn't meet their objectives, didn't enhance their knowledge, wasn't applicable to their work. So the courses on private consultants that the government is spending on these microaggressions, when there are real issues, as Nick points out, when there are real issues going on...
So, James, you can't roll your eyes at this now?
Well, I found that belittling.
There's a whole industry. The problem is the incentives. There's a whole industry which is incentivized to kind of try and come in and find these issues that aren't really necessarily there. And it's one of the things, microaggressions, is innocently intended gestures. Whereas I've always thought that discrimination should be partly about intent. So an innocently intended gesture, I think, is you can find that anywhere.
But how do you measure that?
You can bring people in. Well, I know, I agree. But
it's a perceived slight. If you make a perceived slight, then someone can say, well, that was a microaggression.
Yeah.
The way you rolled your eyes just then.
But and of course, if people are being paid a lot to come in and find those things, of course they're going to interpret these innocent gestures as microaggressions.
I think how you behave, and even subtle things like rolling your eyes, could be really, really unpleasant for the person who's receiving it. The question is, was this course appropriate? Should we be spending money on civil servants getting trained up in it when the civil servants themselves say this was a waste of money.
But it's about more than that. It's about, you know, actually being able to put up with that stuff. Because, Rosie, people have faces. They are going to roll their eyes. They are going to sigh or shake their head.
It is about getting over yourself to a large degree, isn't it?
It kind of is. Yeah. If you're going to present in a meeting, there are going to be people who sort of dismissively shake their... We've all had that. We kind of need to grow backbones and resilience.
Thank you both very much indeed.
You can only come back if you're kind.
No, you can sigh away at us.
Be kind.
Right, we have been asking 2 questions about dogs this morning and also asking whether or not the PM's powers to hand out honours help rid politics of cronyism.
Yeah, we'll be debating this across the programme. Good morning to Stephen, who says honours should be handed out by a public vote, not by former Prime Ministers.
Cos says, why any Prime Minister is allowed to pick and choose his mates is beyond me. They're there to run the country, not reward their friends. That's what you'd think.
And, well, Ronnie has a similar view, saying only the monarch should be allowed to appoint peerages. Prime Ministers should focus on running the country.
I can see some issues with monarchs appointing people to the House of Lords as well. Thank you very much. Do keep those comments coming. You can tweet at TalkTV or text TALK and your message to 87222.